Hey everyone! This week I will be discussing The Girl in the Basement, which stars Judd Nelson and is clearly inspired by the Elisabeth Fritzl case. If you're not familiar with that case, it involved a woman who was held captive in a basement by her father for about 24 years. During the time that she was down there, she bore him multiple children. Some of those kids were allowed to live upstairs, and he pretended that they were abandoned children. One child died shortly after birth. Another three lived in the basement with their mother. It was a horrific case that calls to mind Flowers in the Attic. Flowers in the Attic turned all the way up to 11. The movie opens in true Lifetime fashion with a fast forward. Judd Nelson is driving a car as a young woman is in the back seat with another woman, and one of those women is struggling to breathe. Then we go back in time. Sarah is the main character. She wants to go to a party. Her mother had told her she could go, but her father says she can't. Sarah, by the way, has a sister who I guess is in college, but hasn't rushed back to the dorms because she wants to stick around to protect her little sister, I guess. That's what she says, that she didn't go back to the dorms because she wanted to stay and kind of watch over her sister. I guess their father's a bit crazy. Well, their dad's supposed to be crazy, but at first he just seems like your typical overbearing parent. And the daughter is sneaking out, as teens will do. She sneaks out with her boyfriend and goes to the party, even though her dad told her not to. And later he goes to her room and discovers she's not there. She's in a field, listening to her boyfriend Chris play a guitar. Sarah reminds me a little of Lori Loughlin for some reason. I actually looked up the actress out of curiosity, and no, she's not Lori Loughlin's daughter, but she does kind of look a little bit like Lori Loughlin. Anyway, Sarah returns home the next day, and her father is sitting on the porch waiting for her. He's not happy that she was out all night, especially since he'd forbidden her to go to the party. Once again, pretty typical. She says she's going to leave the second she turns 18. Also, pretty typical. Father says, "My house, my rules." The mother comes to the daughter's room later on and announces that she's only been grounded for a week, so life doesn't seem all that bad in this household. Sarah talks to her sister and mother about her plans for when she graduates. She will travel the country. It will be great. Graduation comes, and now it's 3 months later. Sarah is not quite 18 yet, but will soon be when her father decides to lure her into the basement one day by asking her to take a container down there. He has her place the container in a hidden room, and then he locks her in there. I can't even imagine the terror she must have felt. And this is when the movie takes a really horrifying turn. I knew this was coming, but up until now, I hadn't really seen anything indicative of the father being capable of something this horrible. Maybe extremely controlling, and really obnoxious, but not anything like this. It was just hinted at that he was a tyrant, but this is something else. And I suppose telling your teen daughter she can't go to a party just because is a bit unnecessarily cruel and controlling, but now it's a different category altogether. I just want to say that Judd Nelson reminds me of Stanley Tucci as George Harvey in the movie Lovely Bones. This is giving me serious Lovely Bones vibes. There was an underground room in that movie too, although it was in the earth, and the girl wasn't kept captive for years. She was killed, but Harvey also liked to hang out in his cellar. Anyway, the mother is worried and calls the cops. I just want to say that if your daughter ever goes missing and your husband is acting weird, I recommend following him for a day or two and seeing where he goes. Maybe she couldn't have done that. Maybe he would have seen her following him. Maybe put maybe if you see him go downstairs, down to the basement a lot, maybe put a camera down there. Just a little tip. The father leaves Sarah alone in the locked room for a few days before he comes back, so the mother should have watched him for a few days then, not just a day or two. Sarah tries to escape, but when she gets out the door, she finds herself in a little tunnel-type hallway with another locked door at the end of it. So unlike in Flowers in the Attic, there's no easy way to escape this prison. And even if she were to knock the father out, she would still be up against the electronic keypads. The father changes the code every day, and if she makes too many failed attempts at guessing the code, the power and ventilation is shut off. So this is truly a nightmarish situation, and there is little hope of escape. I can't help but wonder, what if her father had died? I mean, he easily could have in the 20-plus years she was down there. The father makes it clear that she will be punished for showing disrespect, and that she will have to earn privileges. And then he essays her. This is, I believe, the only SA scene in the whole movie, which is good that there aren't more of them that we see, but she does get pregnant multiple times, so we know what's happening. Even though we don't see it, it's awful to think about. The daughter is a high school graduate, so the police can't really do. Unfortunately, she mentioned going away after graduation. Her father says some clothes and a bag of hers are missing. And her mother is like, she would have told me if she was going, and she's not even 18 yet. The police officer is predictable and says, it will all work out. Unfortunately, this just happens to be one of the outlier cases where the dad is a creep. Sarah's boyfriend, Chris, stops by the house. The father tells him about Steve. Apparently, Sarah has this childhood friend named Steve that she ran off with to Florida. She ran to Florida to be a waitress, apparently. Steve sounds like a made-up name. I'm sorry. That sounds completely made up. And we know that the father is making this up, but Chris buys the story and leaves very depressed. The father brings Sarah a cake for her 18th birthday. In real life, Elisabeth was 18 when she was brought down to the basement, so I'm not sure why the movie decided it was necessary to make her a little younger. A year later, she's pregnant. After going into labor all alone in the prison room, she has her first little baby, a daughter named Marie. After 4 years imprisoned, she's pregnant again. The prison room looks a little more homey now. It's got a table, a Christmas tree, and a mattress. I mean, it's still hell on earth, but it's a little bit nicer than it was before. Upstairs, Dawn's wife, Irene, wants to hire a private investigator, but Dawn doesn't care what has happened to his younger daughter. If you ask me, this is a huge red flag. Dawn finally brings Sarah and Marie a TV. It comes with a VHS player built in. Sarah is ecstatic about this, and she tells her daughter, we're going to get to have a little view of the outside, like what's going on outside. We'll get to see people, living their lives on the outside, while we're trapped in here. Actually sounds a little depressing, but, if you're trapped in a room, a TV is going to provide some entertainment and a little bit of escape. So now 7 years have passed in total. Marie, who must be about 6 now, is sick. Sarah wants to take her to the doctor, but that's not going to happen. Sarah comforts her daughter by telling her a story about good Prince Christopher. So she tells the story about good Prince Christopher, and the story is basically her story. Now that so many years have passed, Chris decides to return to the house. Why now? He asks the sister Amy if she's heard anything from Sarah, so he still doesn't know Sarah is missing. When Amy finds out that her father lied to Chris, it doesn't sit well with her. She admits to him that she has a hope that Sarah managed to escape and make a good life for herself, but another part of her expects the worst. The worst being, of course, that her father killed her sister and hid the body. I imagine the idea of her father holding her sister captive in the basement is the furthest thing from her mind. By the way, by this point, there's Marie, the oldest daughter, and then Sarah also has a son named Michael by this point. The mother, Irene, has found out that her husband lied to Chris, and she confronts him. She says she will use her own money to hire a private investigator. Amy, at one point, when her parents aren't watching her, picks up the keys her father dropped on his chair and goes into the basement, but her father catches her. He's like, what do you think? I'm holding your sister captive down here? Basically saying exactly what he's doing. I'm convinced that anytime someone throws that kind of laughably ridiculous hypothetical at you, they are probably telling you the truth, but don't expect you to believe it. Sarah is pregnant again. This baby is named Thomas. Sarah convinces Dawn to raise little Thomas upstairs because there isn't any room downstairs with 2 kids already. So he leaves the baby on the doorstep with a note from Sarah saying she is dropping off her child that she just had. She can't care for the child. She's dropping the baby off with a hope of returning again one day. In the baby basket, Dawn finds a tiny note from Sarah asking her mother to call the police. He is infuriated with her for attempting to use this as a means of escape. And I'm not going to say any more. I'm not going to spoil the rest of the movie, even though if you've heard about the true case, you probably know how the story ends. But I do recommend watching this movie if you have the stomach for it. I thought the acting was pretty good. And it's definitely an important story. I really felt for the mother and the sister. who had no idea what was going on, just underneath them, like in the basement below them. And I just wish someone had, put a video camera down in that basement. I completely understand why the mother didn't think of that, but, now having the benefit of hindsight, I just wish, anyone who sees suspicious behavior like his in the future, just put a video camera down in the basement. Worst case scenario, you get a video of a few rats running around. Best case scenario, you may save a life.